welcome back to The Jump. I'm George Sedano here with Jackie McMullen and Ramona Shelburne. Twitter's popping. Let's go. Speaking of the Blazers there, you saw Dame apparently just responded to a Twitter user who tweeted at him, how much y'all want to bet that before the NBA season starts, the Lakers still get Damian Lillard? Dame tweeted back, bet $1 million. Now listen, okay, I don't know, unless there's some new salary cap I'm not familiar with, I don't feel like that's even possible, but Ramona Shelburne, you know this league and the salary cap and this Lakers team as well as anyone. It seems like Dame is just messing with us here.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that Dame's messing with us. It sort of reminds me of like when we get aggregated poorly and we snap back every once in a while. I think he's sort of tired of people just using him and his discussion for their own fun out there on Twitter. So it just felt like Dame was just cracking a joke.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to Dame's new head coach, Chauncey Billups, who has some bold plans for Portland's offense. The Blazers' dynamic backcourt is known, obviously, for their three-point prowess. But Billups told Jay Allen of Rip City Radio, quote, I'm not one of those coaches that wants to shoot all threes and get up 53s. I don't believe in that. So, Jackie, I'll start with you. It seems like it could be interesting. Do you believe Chauncey's offensive philosophy, if that's the case, will work in Portland?
I do, because I think you could take this a whole bunch of ways, and here's how I take it. Portland was 29th in the league, George, in assists last year. Only the New York Knicks passed the ball around a little more. He wants more ball movement. That's what he should want. What Portland did last year is they were second in three-point attempts behind Utah. Where did it get them? He's not telling Dame Lillard, I guarantee you, hey, Dame, I want you to shoot less threes. That's not happening, okay? That's not what he's saying here. What he's saying here is let's penetrate and kick. I don't mind threes, but I don't want to live exclusively on them because we need better ball movement because what we did last year didn't work effectively or not. And you know what? He's right.
He said a lot of other things in that interview, too, mostly about their defense, which was 23rd in the league in allowing points in defense and 25th in opposing shooting percentage. That's where they need to get better. And if you're worried about your threes and how many you're taking, how many you're making, but you're not stopping anybody on the other end, that's where your problem is. And I think the other part that I thought he said that is really important for the Blazers, not just this year, but going forward in their future with Yusuf Nurkic, is that he thinks there's a lot more they can do with Nurkic and a lot more they can do with him in their offense. He's a great passing big. They can get him a lot more involved in their offense. And I think that's a point of emphasis for Chauncey. So the threes, if that's what you're hunting for, as Jackie pointed out, 29th in assists, that's not going to win you a lot of games. You also have to do it on the defensive end. And the big guy there who needs to get more involved, if you don't get him involved, he's not going to be happy.
Well, I've got good news for Dame and CJ. Can we bring that graphic back up on their three-point percentage and the amount of makes and the attempts and all that stuff? Well, he said 50, okay? Yeah. Well, they averaged 41, basically. Ooh. So, you know what? Dame and CJ,
there you go.
To Jackie's point, you don't have to change very much of what you're going to do on offense. But I think Jackie made a great point, which is drive and kick. If you look at the teams that are most successful in the NBA and tend to win championships on offense, right? It's the teams that move the ball the most, right? It's the teams where your defense cannot set. Now, Ramona, you made an unbelievable point. Their defense, I mean, it was bad. I want to say, if I recall correctly, the Sacramento Kings had the worst defense in the history of the NBA last year. Portland, I think, finished in the top 5 all time as far as defense is concerned. Now, I may be wrong about that.
Last year's a bit of an outlier.
No, for sure. I get that. But it hasn't been good, and it has been trending to get worse over the years. And if there's one thing we know Chauncey's Mr. Big Shot. But those Detroit teams, Jackie, they could defend. There's no doubt about that.
Boy, could they. And there was a toughness to them, too.
And, George, Chauncey came from the Clippers. Clippers led the league in three-point shooting percentage last year.
Right.
So he's not averse to taking shots.
Right.
Taking those threes, just got to make them.
Yeah, we want to make sure. The reason we did this topic was so people don't take it out of context and be like, oh, Chauncey's this old school guy, doesn't want to shoot threes. We wanted to make sure everyone knows that's not exactly what Chauncey's saying here. So good luck to Chauncey there. But let's shift to the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn has signed Kevin Durant to a 4-year extension, as we heard and was reported previously. Nets general manager Sean Marks said Wednesday he's, quote, very confident that both James Harden and Kyrie Irving will be signed, sealed, and delivered before training camp starts. So, Ramona, The Nets have already given the bag to KD, but are you confident Kyrie and Harden will also sign their extension?
Yeah, I'm confident. I mean, initially, the impression I had was that all three of these guys were going to sign their extensions at the same time. There was going to be more of a show that all three of them were teaming up and signing extensions at the same time. But, summertime, people get busy. Kyrie left Rock Nation. He's got to sort out his representation. James has been traveling around Europe. I mean, it just seems like there's been other things going on with both Kyrie and with James.
He was with the baby, I believe, in Europe. There was a big picture that circulated around the internet with that. But Jackie, how about you? How do you feel about their potentials of signing the extension with Brooklyn?
Well, Sean Marks is a very, very careful man. He's been around the league a long time, obviously done a fantastic job in Brooklyn. There's no way on earth he would even suggest this if it wasn't going to happen. And because what we know of Kyrie, people projecting things on behalf of him, if there was even an inkling of a doubt, Sean Marks never would have said this. So I expect them all back. If you're James Harden, why would you even think twice about this? I would have signed it 4 weeks ago or whenever I was eligible. So yeah, this will get done.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And the reality is this: they've teamed up for a reason, so why wouldn't you sign the extension? I mean, logic just says you guys made all this happen, you want it to come together, you see it through, and you give yourself a window to potentially reach your goal, which is to win a championship or maybe even multiple championships.
There's not a huge sense of urgency, though. Both those guys are under contract for a while, so there's not it doesn't have to get done right now. My training camp would be better, though.
Okay. Well, there was a sense.
Just remember, it wasn't Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. It was Kyrie, Durant, and DeAndre Jordan. Harden joined the party late, so he wasn't part of that original pact.
Yeah, no doubt. So, speaking of timeliness and contracts, well, with Dennis Schroeder, it didn't go so great. He bet on himself and he lost. Schroeder spent one season in Los Angeles with the Lakers, turned down a 4-year, $84 million offer from Los Angeles in March to instead test free agency. Now, he's headed to Boston on a 1-year deal for $5.9 million, which is the taxpayer mid-level exception. So, Jackie, will Dennis Schroeder's free agency gamble serve as a cautionary tale for players moving forward?
So you would think it would, except for my experience with these players is they all have great positive self-talk. They all believe in themselves. That most of them are saying, well, that was him, man. That's not me. So I don't really think this will change any player's mind if he really believes in himself. And it's usually the agents that are trying to guide you through this process. So Dennis Schroeder, look, this was a miscalculation on his part. A lot of things went awry. I will say this on terms of the Celtics end of it. If you said to me the Celtics signed Schroeder to a 4-year, $70 million contract, I'd say that's a huge mistake. A 1-year, $5.9 million contract for a team that's super thin at the point? Are you kidding me? This fell right in their lap. This is maybe one of the best signings of the summer in terms of value for price.
Brad Stevens, Executive of the Year already. Look at that. He just got the job, and he's already headed that direction. Ramona, you've got some stuff on this here.
Well, look, with the Dennis Schroeder story is he comes to the Lakers. They went out and traded for him. Remember, they traded a first-round pick and Danny Green for Dennis Schroeder. They showed they wanted him. And the first thing he did in joining a championship team is say, I want to start. Wasn't a good start to get off. It wasn't a good start to his Laker tenure. I mean, the Lakers had just won a championship, so to come in and say, I want to start when you haven't done anything in training camp or earned anything, that was a big proclamation. I think that was the start of when they realized this may not work out very well. And his best years in the NBA have been as a sixth man. That year in Oklahoma City where he finished second in the sixth man of the year voting, that's what made the Lakers want to go trade for him. They believed in him. They wanted him to do more. They gave him that latitude, said, okay, starting's important to you, then we're going to try to make that work. But not only did they go out and give him that offer that made him a really big offer, after they traded for Russell Westbrook, my understanding is they went and circled back around to him and talked with him about a shorter term deal, 1 year, sort of a softer offer for more money than he got with the Celtics, and he wasn't interested in that either. So it wasn't just the $84 million contract that extension he turned down during the year. There was a circling back with him afterwards. Ends up in Boston. Maybe that'll be a better fit, Jackie, because I think he has a bigger role there in Boston where he can rebuild his value.
That's it. It's just 1 year, right? So he has a chance to rebuild his value, and he has to be he has to do everything they ask of him so that people begin to look at him again as a guy that can be a good teammate and a guy that can fit on any team. So this is a win-win for the Celtics and Schroeder in my mind.
Well, listen, all I can say is this, all right? The money part, we've seen the reported stuff that he was in shock or whatnot. Look, I don't know if he's married or not, but Mrs. Sedano would have me sleeping out on the curb, okay, if I passed on $84 million. That's all I'm going to say. So if the bosses want to offer me $84 million, I will gladly take it. Or any team, whoever, anyone want to offer me that kind of money.
Rookie contract, so he's made some money at least.
All right, so coming up, there have been rumblings that Luka and Porzingis aren't necessarily great friends off the court, but can they work on the floor? Tim McMahon stops by to break it all down. That's coming up next. You're on The Jump.
Mainstream took a hold of my soul, but I made it back, bringing it back to the roots on some I rhyme for the love of it. This right here is